This happened on a cold Friday night in November 2022. I was staying at my parents' old farmhouse in northern Missouri, the kind of place that sat a good half-mile from the nearest neighbor, with gravel roads that disappeared into trees and fields. They were visiting my sister in Chicago, and I'd agreed to house-sit for the weekend. I thought it would be peaceful. The day had been calm, gray sky, the smell of wood smoke drifting from someone's chimney down the road, and that flat quiet that only exists in the countryside. I fed the dogs, fixed myself a simple dinner, eggs and toast, and planned to spend the night watching movies. By 8:30, I'd locked all the doors and turned most of the lights off, except a lamp in the living room. The dogs, Daisy and Boone, lay at my feet. Outside, the wind had picked up, rattling the metal barn roof and making the old oak branches scrape against the siding. It was cozy, until it wasn't. Around 9, I paused the movie because I thought I'd heard something outside. A light crunch, like footsteps on gravel. Boone's head lifted. Daisy's ears twitched, but neither barked. I muted the TV and listened. The wind howled through the eaves again. Nothing else. I told myself it was just the wind stirring the old oak limbs, or maybe a raccoon near the trash bins. Out here, animals roamed freely. Still, I got up and checked the back door. The porch light flickered as it often did, an old bulb that needed changing. I pressed my hand against the cold glass and peered through. The yard was just a black sea of movement, branches swaying, leaves skating across the dirt. When I turned around, Boone was standing in the hallway, staring toward the front of the house. His tail was stiff. A single, deliberate knock echoed through the quiet. It came from the front door. I froze. Nobody came out here unannounced, not at night. My parents' driveway was half a mile of gravel. You could always hear cars coming long before they reached the house. I hadn't heard a thing. Another knock, slow, firm. I swallowed hard, turned off the lamp, and stood in the dark, listening. The dogs began to whine softly, not barking, just uneasy. I whispered, "Who's there?" No answer. I tried to glance through the window beside the door, but the porch light didn't reach far enough. Only darkness beyond the glass. A third knock, louder this time. Then silence. I grabbed my phone and opened the camera feed. My parents had an old motion-activated camera mounted above the front porch. But when I checked the app, it showed only static, no feed. Maybe the Wi-Fi was down. The rural quiet pressed in around me, heavy as fog. I called out again, "I'm calling the police." The voice that answered was calm, almost conversational. "Don't do that." Every muscle in my body went cold. The voice was a man's, low, steady, like he was standing just inches from the other side of the door. "Who are you?" I managed to say. "Sorry to bother you," he said. "My car broke down. Can I use your phone?" That old line, the kind that sets off every instinct you have. Out here, you didn't just walk up to someone's door in the dark. "I can call a tow truck for you," I said, trying to sound steady. "Where's your car?" Silence. Then, "Please, just open up. It's cold." I didn't answer. I stepped back quietly, heart slamming, and dialed 911. No signal. The old farmhouse was notorious for dead zones. I turned on Wi-Fi calling. Still nothing. The man knocked again, slower this time. Each knock reverberated through the wood, syncing with my pulse. Then I heard movement, the crunch of boots on the gravel path that ran along the side of the house. He was circling. I ran to the kitchen, keeping the lights off. The small window above the sink looked out toward the side yard. I lifted the edge of the curtain just enough to see. The porch light threw a faint glow, and in that weak cone of light, I saw him, a tall figure wearing a dark hoodie and jeans, walking slowly along the side of the house, head tilted slightly, like he was listening. He stopped near the back steps. For a second, he just stood there, his face hidden by shadow. Then he moved toward the back door. I ducked beneath the window. My hands were shaking so badly I nearly dropped my phone. I texted a friend who lived 15 minutes away. "Someone's outside. Come now. Bring help." 3 dots appeared. Then nothing. No service. Boone began to growl low in his throat. Daisy whimpered. The man tried the back doorknob. It rattled. Once, twice. Then the soft metallic sound of something sliding, metal on metal. He was trying to pick the lock. I backed into the hallway, whispering, "Stay," to the dogs. My plan was to grab my dad's old hunting rifle from the upstairs closet. I hadn't fired it in years, but it was loaded. Halfway up the stairs, the house went completely dark. The hum of the fridge stopped. The small clock in the kitchen went silent. The power was out. He must have found the breaker. My breathing came in short bursts. I climbed the rest of the stairs by feel, every step creaking like thunder in the silence. Upstairs, the windows looked out across the dark fields, no other lights for miles. I reached the closet, groped for the rifle, and found it. My fingers brushed the cold metal of the barrel. I remembered the safety, the feel of the stock pressed against my shoulder. Downstairs, glass shattered. Boone barked, a deep, frantic sound. Then a heavy thud, followed by a man's grunt. I moved to the top of the stairs, trying to see through the darkness. My heart was hammering so loudly, I thought he'd hear it. The dim outline of the front hallway came into view, faint moonlight spilling through the broken glass. He was inside. I could see the silhouette, tall, shoulders hunched, moving carefully. He had something in his hand, I couldn't tell what. Daisy was whining from somewhere near the kitchen. Boone barked again, a snarl this time, and the man turned toward the sound. That was my chance. I raised the rifle, braced it on the banister, and shouted, "I have a gun!" He froze. For a moment, neither of us moved. Then he started laughing. Quietly at first, then louder, like he couldn't help himself. "Go ahead," he said. "Shoot." It was the way he said it, steady, mocking, that made my stomach twist. This wasn't someone desperate or lost. He was enjoying this. He took a step forward, and I pulled the trigger. The click that followed was louder than thunder. No shot. The gun wasn't loaded. My dad must have emptied it years ago. The man chuckled again and kept walking toward the stairs. I turned and ran, through the upstairs hallway, into my parents' bedroom, locked the door. My fingers found the nightstand drawer. Inside was my mom's old cell phone. I pressed the power button. Miraculously, it turned on. 1 bar of service. I dialed 911 and whispered my address. The dispatcher's voice was calm, trained. "Stay on the line. Officers are on the way. Can you lock yourself in?" "He's inside," I whispered. "Stay quiet. They're en route." Below, I heard him moving. Slow footsteps crossing the living room. The faint scrape of drawers opening. Then, silence. I strained to hear. Every small sound became a message. The creak of wood, the rustle of curtains, the faint buzz of the phone in my hand. Minutes passed like hours. Then the doorknob turned. Softly, deliberately. I pressed my back to the wall beside the door, gripping the empty rifle like a club. The knob rattled again, then stopped. He whispered through the door, his voice low and measured. "You shouldn't have called anyone." Something sharp hit the wood once, twice, as he tried to pry it open. I heard the frame crack. I wanted to scream, but no sound came out. Then Boone barked again, this time from right behind the door. He must have escaped his collar. His growl deepened, and there was a sound of scuffling, claws on the floor, a man's grunt. A heavy thud followed. Then, nothing. The next thing I remember was a faint glow from the window. Headlights bouncing up the driveway, gravel crunching. Blue and red lights flickered through the curtains. "Sheriff's Department," a voice shouted. I yanked the door open. Boone stood in the hallway, trembling, tail low. At the top of the stairs, I saw broken glass glittering in the beam of the deputies' flashlights. They swept the house. But the man was gone. The back door hung open, a cold draft cutting through the silence. They followed the trail of footprints out to the fields, but found nothing, just darkness stretching in every direction. The power was still out. When they checked the breaker box, they found it had been pried open, wires deliberately cut. I spent the rest of the night in the patrol car while they cleared the property. The sheriff, an older man with kind eyes, told me it wasn't the first report they'd had. "Someone's been casing homes along this road," he said. "Never stays long, usually gone before we get here." They took prints from the glass, photos of the footprints, and a partial handprint from the back door, but it never matched anyone. I moved out of the farmhouse 2 weeks later. My parents sold it that spring. Boone never barked the same way again. Always wary, always listening. Daisy refused to sleep near the doors. It's been almost a year. I live in a small apartment now, surrounded by neighbors, sirens, and streetlights. Sometimes I still wake up to phantom knocks, in dreams or maybe just memory. A few nights ago, though, something happened that made my stomach drop. I came home from work around 9 p.m. The hallway smelled faintly of wet concrete and dust. My door was locked, the deadbolt secure, just like I'd left it. But there was something on the doormat. A small piece of gravel, smooth, pale gray, the kind you find only on old country driveways. And when I bent to pick it up, I saw the faintest trace of a muddy boot print leading away down the hall.